I'm Jody Thornton. This is Toronto's breaking news, traffic and weather. Your next update at 12:45 on News Talk 1010.
The following is a paid advertisement on News Talk 1010.
You're listening to Todd C. Slater on Simply Real Estate, News Talk 1010.
And welcome back. So if you've tuned into the show in the past, I have a section that I call Minutes with the Mayor. And I've always just really wanted to be able to get what I consider probably the most important mayor to interview. And I've actually been very fortunate to have His Worship, the Mayor of Toronto, Mr. John Tory, on the show in the summer. But he's agreed to join me here in the studio today. And Your Worship, thank you so much for joining us.
I was beginning to feel left out on the long form interviews, but I'm delighted you've had the mayors of all the surrounding, because we operate very much as a region, whether it's on housing or on a host of other issues. And but I'm just glad to have the opportunity to be here to answer your questions today.
Well, thank you so much. It's a real privilege. And one of the things, Mr. Mayor, that I've been able to follow in your career is that you are a very active participant in the real estate world. And I know, talking to all the powers to be, when we talk about the head of TREB, RIA, all the boards that are involved in the Toronto area and the outlying areas, you really do have an involvement, because you are focusing on the health of I consider the greatest asset that anybody can really own is their own primary residence. But we've had some obstacles over the last few years. Toronto has come into its own. You are at the helm here, and we've got some issues I'd like to talk about today. One big part, of course, is the actual inventory itself. This is something you and I have talked about in the past, but I don't see that there's any real light at the end of the tunnel, because inventory, as soon as we have it, it gets snapped up, and it's really tough to get more.
But I guess, Todd, better that we should be trying to create some new inventory, and we're trying to be as ambitious as we can, especially when it comes to affordable housing. Right. Because I figured it out this way, and I think the listeners maybe figured it out as often as the case before their politicians did. If people are making $50,000 a year in Toronto, which lots of jobs pay, and it's a good, secure job with benefits and so on, right, then if you simply do the math, take off the income tax the government takes, and see what you have left, and then what that gets you in the context of renting, let alone even thinking about buying, right, there is a big gap in the market that was allowed to be created both because of the success of the city and as rents and values rose, but also because incomes at the same time didn't rise by as much. So there was an obvious gap that was created, and now the task falls in front of us to fill it. And so we are doing we've got huge initiatives on to build thousands upon thousands of affordable units. It does take time, as you know. A building or a building doesn't go up in a week or a month, but we're at it. We're now building more affordable housing units than we've ever built before on a concurrent basis. A lot of them will start to be ready for people to live in 2022, 2023. Right. And we're just going to keep at it, because we need to address that inventory. The supply question is the single most important thing that we can address in order to try and keep a lid on prices and make sure that people have a place to live, because we want all people to be able to think and understand and know they can live in the city of Toronto, not just well-to-do people.
Of course. One of the things that I heard back in the fall, that you had announced a program that you're actually, I would call it kind of a hybrid, where you've got some affordable housing being mixed with some condominiums. I think it's a wonderful idea. The idea that working with some of the private developers, I think, is going to be very important, not just city-driven, but if we can get the private developers to work hand in hand. Is one of the things that you have the ability of doing here in the city is being able to take a look at some available lands, offer it to a developer and say, hey, listen, you know what, why don't we go into partnership here? You build what we need, you get some of what you need, and we can have a good partnership.
So if you look at what drives the price of housing, whether it's rental or purchase, there are various different components, but one of the biggest ones is the cost of land.
Of course.
So we have the City of Toronto, the provincial and federal governments as well, own a lot of land. I'll come back to that, because the feds have not really stepped up with any of their land yet. We've put up many pieces of land, most recently on our Housing Now program, 11 pieces of land close to transit that are owned by the city. And what we're saying to any private or nonprofit developer that comes along, on the theory we are not in the housing business in terms of building and operating housing. We do it for Toronto Community Housing, which is a very particular example. But on this other kind of housing, we're saying to the developers, we will help you defray the cost of land by leasing it to you for $1 a year or otherwise. And so I hope that's going to be very heavily subscribed to. Those pieces of land are just being put into the market now. Right. And the requirement we have in return for putting up the land is that a substantial portion, as high as possible, of that housing should be affordable housing as defined by the CMHC. So it's a level of rent, I think right now around $1,100 a month, right, that we know is in the more affordable range. And the way they make it work for them, the private sector people, is not just with our lower land costs, but also by combining those affordable apartments with ones that are at market rent, say. So they can combine a building that has market rent and affordable rental units in them. And I think that's healthy socially, too, because you've got a mix of people living in those buildings and nobody really knows who's who. You're just living in the same apartments, just some have been, in effect, subsidized by the government through our land going in and the deferral of taxes and charges. And so that's the kind of thing we have to do almost without exception. I mean, I think gone are the days where we're going to have a whole bunch of buildings being built that are only for people who are more well-to-do. And I say that in no provocative or adversarial way. We just simply have to address this middle band of the population that have jobs that are never going to pay really high incomes, but we want to live and we need to live in a big, successful city.
Yeah. One of the things that I know, part of your campaign, and I know that you are very much advocating for, I would say, increasing or at least improving the stock for Toronto community housing. So, you and I have talked about the renovations that you've got ongoing. It's a big push, obviously, here in the city, because there was quite a few units that were in very poor repair, obviously non-livable, things like that. How is that process going? Is there some light at the end of the tunnel?
Oh, yeah.
Are you seeing some good progression?
And what's happened is, first of all, Todd, the city, for the first time ever under my administration, has given the Toronto Community Housing Corporation a guaranteed amount of money, $160 million a year for 10 years, so $1.6 billion, that they know will be in our budget every year for repairs. Right. That's just for repairs. The federal government has come forward with $1.3 billion to contribute to this in loans and grants for us to do the repairs. So finally, after years where nobody seemed to want to accept responsibility for this, and the city was simply saying, look, we can't do it alone. We can't meet a $2.6 billion repair backlog only with property taxpayers' money. It's not fair. My view is that Toronto Community Housing never should have been downloaded to the city to begin with. Ontario is the only province in Canada where cities are left to be responsible for social housing. The only one. Wow. So it is what it is. But the bottom line is now, when you ask if there's light at the end of the tunnel, yes. And what I was confronted with when I became mayor is hundreds of units we were going to have to close and tear down because they weren't being repaired. Right. We're now, yes, still closing a few that were beyond getting repaired, but we're repairing the others so that they will be a public asset that we've properly maintained, but more importantly, a public asset in which we house some of our most vulnerable citizens. And I'm proud of the fact that we're actually putting those into a state that we could be satisfied with, as opposed to being embarrassed at the way they were before.
Yeah, no, I think you're making excellent progress. And one of the things I've always tried to tell people, sometimes it's just better to renovate than it is to build brand new, especially when you already have, the brick and mortar is definitely something you can work with. But in the situation with some of these housing facilities, they just really needed, they had issues with heat, they had issues with roofs, they had issues with windows, all things that can be done in a much more timely fashion than saying, hey, listen, let's whack this, put up a brand new building and start all over again. Then you have to take the people, if there are some residents in the buildings already, then you have to move them. I think you're stepping definitely in the right direction with what you're doing. Of course.
May I say one more thing, which is that the other thing people out there who may not have much exposure to social housing, to Toronto community housing, can understand is that a lot of what we're doing is very good for climate change adaptation too. Sure. Because those very same windows you talked about from the 60s are the biggest energy leak. And I don't know that people understand the biggest single source of greenhouse gas emissions in Toronto is from buildings that are energy inefficient. And so as we improve those buildings, we're contributing to the well-being of the environment, and we're going to save a lot of money on the energy bills in those buildings, and the buildings are going to look better because you don't have these old windows that are falling apart and falling out and so on. So it's a win-win-win. And I guess one more, it creates a lot of jobs. This construction and renovation activity in all these buildings, we have 58,000 units across the city. Yep. It creates a lot of jobs for people. And so I'm happy we're doing it. And I'm sorry it's taken so long because for years nobody did anything. But now we're stepping up and saying we're putting up the money and we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do.
Great. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask that you stay put.
Sure.
Folks, when we come back, I'm going to have more with His Worship, John Tory, Mayor of Toronto. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Todd C. Slater on Simply Real Estate, News Talk 1010.
Every winter morning, Eric drives to the office in darkness, works all day, and then leaves in darkness. But there's a light ahead at Nissan, a high beam of hope at the Winter Warrior sales event. Eric can lease a new 2020 Nissan Murano from the equivalent of $199 bi-weekly and get up to 4 years of regularly scheduled oil changes on us. Visit choosenissan.ca or your Nissan dealer. $430 monthly at 2.9% for 60 months. Conditions apply.
Let me be the first to say, set your sights on spring. If 2020 is the year to make your home really secure with Metalec safety screen windows and doors, order now for spring delivery. Soon, your family will be 100% secure, even with your windows and doors wide open as you enjoy the spring air. I'm Barb DiGiulio. Call Tom Reimer at Metalex. Metalex keeps my family safe. Now it's your turn. METALEX, metalexstores.com.
A message from Canadian Blood Services. Reason 23 to join Canada's Lifeline. The need for blood doesn't take a holiday. That's why we need donors every day. There are lots of reasons to donate blood. Book now at blood.ca.
There is currently a need for O-negative blood. O-negative blood is used in emergency situations, which is why it's always in need. Donate blood and give hope to patients in need. Book now at blood.ca.
So if we win Cash for Life's $1,000 a week for life, there's so much more we could do. Like redo the backyard so the dogs can run around. We'll have barbecues for our families. And one day, put in a pool. The kids are going to love a pool.
That sounds great. I mean, it's only our second date, but I like where it's going.
With Cash for Life, you could win $1,000 every week for life. Cash for Life. The fantastic feeling goes on and on.
Are you struggling to lose weight? At the Bernstein Diet and Health Clinics, we've been helping people lose weight and feel great for over 40 years. And we can help you lose up to 20 pounds per month without exercise or diet pills. Whether you want to lose 10 pounds, 30 pounds, or more, our team of nurses and doctors will ensure that your weight loss is healthy and long-lasting. So stop struggling and start succeeding. Call us today at 1-888-DRB-DIET or visit drbdiet.com to learn more.
It was a rainy day when Pizzaville declared, "We'll never be the fastest. We'll never be the cheapest. We'll never be the snazziest dressed." What? Yeah, my point is, we want to be the best. At Pizzaville, we want to make the best pizza, stone-baked, the traditional Italian way.
Pizzaville Stone-Baked Pizza. Fiercely Canadian. Authentically Italian.
So, our mortgage approval is done?
Great news. The bank has approved you at a 2.74% rate.
What the what? That's way too high. Butler Mortgage is 2.38%.
Well, it cannot be the same as our bank's mortgage.
It's totally the same. 5-year fixed rate, same features, no fees. 2.38%. I'm switching to Butler Mortgage. Enough of making the banks rich.
License number 12118. High ratio fixed rate APR 2.39%.
What do your customers love about streaming content? Well, everything. That's why Adyen makes it simple for users to subscribe to the content they live for, everywhere they go. Playlists in the gym? Yep. Gaming on the commute? Check. Watching sports anywhere? Score. All with Adyen, the single payments platform that lets customers pay for subscriptions how, when, and where they want. Visit adyen.com to learn more. Adyen. Business, not boundaries.
Have an interest for technology and looking for a new career in cabling, surveillance, access control, or wireless networks? Get your start with Delmy Training Institute in Woodbridge, offering courses for structured cabling, wireless networks, CCTV security surveillance, and access control. Graduate in as little as 2 to 5 days. Delmy Training Institute provides you with the skills and tools for a successful career and serves lunch daily. Graduate certificates are recognized by top industry professionals. Enroll today at delmytraining.com. That's DELMI training.com.
Your kitchen. It's your coffee shop, your family diner, your romantic bistro, and your wine bar. At Tasco Appliances, we understand the many roles your kitchen plays and the contribution that each appliance makes to it. Do your kitchen a favor and don't make an investment until you talk to a knowledgeable Tasco Pro. Right now, save up to 35% when you purchase select appliances from Monogram.
Come say hello, ask a pro at Tasco.
Visit TascoAppliance.ca.
It's 12:45, and it's time for News Talk 1010 Time Saver Traffic.
New problems showing up through Mississauga. We already have 2 left lanes blocked. This is Niagara bound on the QEW approaching Huron, Ontario. We just started out in the left lane there, so delays building back to well before Cawthra now. Eastbound Steeles approaching Bayview, no traffic flow through there. There's a crash blocking all lanes, so coming eastbound from Yonge and Willowdale, we're seeing major delays there. At Jane and Shepherd also we have a collision. Lease a 2020 Lexus RX 350 for as low as 1.9% APR with total credits of up to $2,000. Visit your Toronto area Lexus dealer. I'm Jody Thornton. This is Toronto's breaking news, traffic and weather. Your next update at 1 on News Talk 1010.
Now, more of Simply Real Estate with host Todd C. Slater on News Talk 1010.